Welcome to Golden Speakers Toastmasters of Fairfield, Iowa. I'm Sergeant of Arms this evening, and we meet every Tuesday night at 7:45, but please come at 7:40. We'd like to get organized. And next week, every Tuesday, but next week, we are going to meet in the Hy-Vee in the community room.
And that date will be?
And that date will be
March 4th.
March 4th. So write that on your calendars in big red letters. March 4th, Hy-Vee.
Club room.
In the club room.
And going forward.
And going forward from now on. Next And Tom has been volunteered to put a big sign on the door downstairs so that in case anybody forgets, they'll get redirected. Now please join me in warmly welcoming our club president, Rhonda Wicker.
Thank you, Cindy. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, Izana and John, welcome. And Amanda, welcome. Tonight we have two speakers and we are going to be using a PowerPoint for both speeches. You may be wondering what we do at Toastmasters. Toastmasters is a place where you can feel safe and supported, develop communication and leadership skills, and build self-confidence and personal growth. Leadership is one of our speakers' theme tonight, and I'd like to pass the torch, the lectern, the bus. We drive the bus, we stay with the bus, we make sure everybody's safe, to our Toastmaster of the evening, Mr. Stephen Harper.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, guests, honored guests, and viewers at home. Tonight, we are going to be having a meeting centered around the theme of endings and beginnings. And a quote that we have for the evening that captures that theme is, "What the caterpillar calls the end, the rest of the world calls a butterfly." From Lao Tzu. So this evening, the first thing that I have to do is to introduce the role players. The first role player I'd like to introduce is Jeff Shipley. He is our timer tonight. Jeff,
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, honored distinguished guests, especially Gilberto, who just arrived. My role is the timer, so my main job is to keep time of the meeting. This may seem kind of simple, but it actually is more challenging, especially if you suffer from attention deficit disorder. And this is actually kind of one of my least favorite roles because I tend to be distracted by the stopwatch. I'm not necessarily paying as much or enjoying the speech as much as I would like. So what I'll be doing in my role is I'll be using this stopwatch to keep the time, and then these set of lights here to communicate to the speaker how much time they have left. So for table topic speeches, our 1 to 2 impromptu speeches, the green light will go on at 1 minute, the amber light at 1 minute 30 seconds, and then the red light at 2 minutes. And then the red light will remain on for 30 seconds, in which you'll be disqualified. We have two speakers tonight. Karen's speech is 10 to 12 minutes, the green light going on at 10 minutes, the amber light at 11 minutes, and the red light at 12 minutes. Karen's also requested that I flash the yellow light a few times to indicate when she's halfway through. And then Monty's speech will be 10 to 15 minutes, the green light at 10 minutes, the yellow light at 12 minutes 30 seconds, and the 15 minutes will be the red light. And if you see the red light flashing, that means disqualification is imminent. And if you see it flashing again, then I'll begin to clap you off the stage.
You can flash me too, Jeff.
Okay, you want the halfway mark? All right, so I'll, what was it, 6 minutes then?
No, he was.
Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.
so the moral of the story is don't run any yellow lights. Okay, Mr. Suryazeev, would you please explain what your role is as counter?
Good evening, everyone. I'm the counter tonight, so I will be counting filler words, such as like, you know, so, but, and, tongue click, pause, the Xerox, which is to repeat, and a false start. And I will give a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The grammarian this evening is Cindy Trainer. Cindy, there you are.
I'm hiding right in plain sight.
Oh.
It's good to have something that goes along with the theme. Beginning and endings, beginning of something is a genesis. To use that, it's a noun, and to use that in a sentence, the founder of Toastmasters International is Dr. Ralph Smedley. To use it in a sentence, I wrote, Dr. Ralph Smedley was the genesis of Toastmasters International. In addition to listening for someone who uses the word genesis appropriately, I'll also keep track of incorrect and good use of language and words. Now, I'll try to remember to see if people are brief and to the point, if they speak in a conversational manner, if they have used metaphors, similes, and analogies, which relates something that is unfamiliar to something familiar. The metaphors compare two things. It was like a wild and stormy night type thing.
Ha!
Similes compare the words like or as, and analogies extend to metaphors or similes. Well, if you understand that, you're the English teacher, not me. And I'll give a report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, and now to give the genesis to the next item on our agenda is Stephanie Chambers, who is our table topics master.
Yo!
Table topics, you get a chance to talk extemporaneously. Do I have any volunteers? Guests are also welcome to volunteer. Okay. And I'm following on with the theme of endings. Let me just come and do that. What was your name once again?
Louise.
Louise.
Yo!
Between 1 and 4.
4.
Okay, 4. Would you like to talk about the ending of a job? The last days of a job, for example, after you resign. It could be on the eve of some new beginning after that job, but it's an ending.
So today is my last day at my job. And it's been a very good experience that I've had at this place where I have been able to accommodate my necessities and have been able to expand my knowledge and the experience that I've had. But I think now is a chance for me to step up and find a new job that is going to allow me to have new opportunities and a different way of expanding my mental boundaries, emotional boundaries, and any boundaries that have been holding me back. And I believe I've had enough with this job in the sense that I have appreciated everything that is God, but I've just squeezed it like orange juice in the morning. And now it's become quite dry, and now it's going to be the genesis of a new chapter in my life where I will be able to squeeze more of this new fresh juice of this new chapter, and I'm very much so looking forward to it. So here I come.
Do I have another volunteer? Yes, please. What's your name once again?
Nelson.
Nelson. So pick one between 1 and 3. 3. Okay. Would you like to talk about the ending of a journey where you're reaching your destination?
Thank you.
It has come to this moment to embrace what we have thought about so many years ago. And we're coming to the peak of it, our moment that we all share together. And maybe this peak it ain't the end of the road, but it's just the beginning. And we can be trailblazers starting something new. Let's call it a genesis. It is our time now to not fall back and to start embracing that bit of energy we had in the very beginning. That drive that we had in the very beginning of our road to our trip, our journey. And now we've accomplished so much. Can we continue? Can we persevere? Can we knock down those walls that we once saw in the very beginning and now they just look so small? We just walk right over them. Easily. Embrace it. So at this very end, there is no end. Because I still have the same drive I had in the very beginning. And so the journey must continue. And so every one of you can join me in walking with me in embracing this journey. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more. Would you like to volunteer, sir?
I suppose I might like to.
Okay, would you like to talk about the end of a relationship? Could be boyfriend or girlfriend, or the end of a friendship, or whatever.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
I told my wife this evening at 7:30 when I came home for dinner from my office, I said, I'm going to Toastmasters, and she just looked at me like, oh. I haven't seen you all day, and now you're going to leave. So Toastmasters could be the beginning of the end. If only you knew how funny that really is. But that's for another day. That story will have to remain in the back pocket, because I wanted to update you all. Many of you haven't seen me here at Toastmasters. Some of you might be thinking, God, wish you hadn't come back. I just got back from a 10-day speaking tour, thanks to Toastmasters, really. I'm a professional speaker. And did a seminar in Chicago and spoke at Pacific College of Oriental Medicine, several spiritual organizations. I did a keynote talk at Self-Employment the Arts Conference. It was awesome. I mean, it was incredible. And the keynote wasn't up to par for me. So I said, it's time to come back to Toastmasters. Time to come back and start sharpening the skills, get the tools out of the toolbox, polish them off a little bit. Lifelong mastery. And I can say I really feel like now I'm just getting to the point where I can develop mastery. So I've been getting pretty good. Now I'm like, okay, let's master this thing. So I'm going to be coming back to more meetings. You'll see me here more often. And I appreciate that you're still here. For you that are doing all the work, holding the space. I guess you could say it's the genesis of a new journey in life, and hopefully not the cause for the end of a relationship. Yo!
Do we have time for one more? Okay.
Yes.
Would someone like to volunteer quickly? Quick volunteers. Oh, great. Okay, so I only have one left. So would Would you like to talk about the end of, say, a period of study, end of a course, graduating?
Oh.
You can even graduate from high school, whatever. Thank you.
I just remember the very last day of graduation from high school. I remember being in the back of the classroom, looking to the blackboard and thinking, wow, this is my last day of high school. I was 16, 16 and a half, no, 16, yeah. Graduated early actually, so. But I do remember clearly that moment and thinking like, I'm not coming back here. Just, and for a split of a second, like my whole high school time went by through my mind, thinking, remembering all the experiences. And I had the opportunity to talk about this in front of my classmates for our 20-year reunion. That was 3 years ago. And I still have that same feeling of leaving and ending a period of my life that was actually really cool to enjoy. And sometimes I miss it, because I didn't have to work, I didn't have to worry about anything. So I only had to ask for money from my parents. But I was able to study and learn many things. At the time, we didn't have computers. We did have computers, but we didn't have internet. We had libraries, so it was a good experience also to do that. And so now I'm here. It's 23 years later, in front of you, talking about that experience. So, thank you.
Mr. Climate, did all of the speakers qualify?
Yes, all 4 speakers qualified, Lewis, Nelson, Seth, and Gilberto.
Roberta. Would you like to? And now I'll hand over to Art Atkinson, who's going to evaluate the table topic speakers.
Thank you, Stephanie. My name is Art Atkinson. My job as evaluator is to help these brave speakers to find whatever gems that they did do well and those things that might be improved. Luis spoke of a job ending. He took 10 seconds approximately of silence at the beginning to think about and compose his thoughts. He had some very vivid language. He talked about squeezing every available drop of experience. He called it like squeezing orange juice, and he used a ringing motion with his hands, which I thought conveyed his thought very beautifully. One of the recommendations I would have for you would, and this is a skill that you'll develop over time, would be to move purposefully through the space, make a point here, make a point perhaps to one person, but to use the space to help the audience understand this point, this point, and this point. And in your case, it might be the old job that's ending and the possibilities that I'm looking for in the new opportunity. Nelson spoke beautifully. In fact, this could have been a prepared speech in my mind. This was just brilliantly done, Nelson. You took some time, about 10 seconds. The opening was dramatic. I didn't get a chance to copy it down, but it had the quality of an oration, something that I aspire to. It was a beautifully done speech. You used the word of the evening. One of the recommendations that I would have for you is if you can be any more specific about the experience that you were speaking of. You spoke in very abstract, inspirational, general terms, but more specific, at least in some point in the talk, would be great. The language was very colorful. Seth spoke about the end of relationships, and I want to congratulate you on finding humor in this situation, Seth. This could be the beginning of the end, the visit to yet another Toastmasters meeting, and the humor. We were wishing that he hadn't come back. took about 5 seconds. He was apparently quite ready to speak. And he used a beautiful metaphor, the toolbox metaphor, and the fact that the training that we give ourselves here is an opportunity to develop new tools to make speech more impactful. Gilberto spoke on a graduation from high school theme. He used some very vivid gestures to convey the idea of thinking back through and passing over quickly 4 years worth of high school memories. You had your hands clasped in front of you as you spoke, and you didn't particularly move from here. And one of the skills that you'll develop is the skill, as I was speaking before, of using the stage, using the available space to make a point here and make a point there and help the audience distinguish the points. You also incorporated a little humor. Congratulations, the asking for money point. And those are my thoughts. Thank you.
So you see, everyone who speaks has the opportunity to have a critique, and that's one of the main benefits of coming to the Toastmasters meeting. So at this point in our meeting, it's time for our prepared speeches. We have 2 prepared speeches tonight. Karen Aoki is giving the first speech, and I would like to now introduce Will Burns, who will read her objectives and evaluate her speech.
Karen is doing CC number 10. That's Inspire Your Audience.
All right.
Yeah, not done yet. There's a theme of Toastmasters. They're taking CC number 10, but aren't actually done yet with their CCs. It's a terrible trend in this. The objectives are to inspire the audience by appealing to noble motives and challenging the audience to achieve a higher set of beliefs or accomplishments. To appeal to the audience's need, emotions, using stories, anecdotes, and quotes to add drama, and to do all of this, endeavoring to not use notes. Her speech is titled, Enjoying Diversity on the Basis of Unity. She grew up in a Protestant missionary culture in Tokyo, Japan. She came to the U.S. when she was 16 and has lived in various communities in the U.S. ever since. She now lives in Fairfield, Iowa, where she is a PhD student at MUM. Tonight's talk will focus on building bridges across cultural divides, whether they be in the areas of religion, race, lifestyle, or otherwise. She will draw from her experiences living in diverse communities around the world and from her mother's area of research in cross-cultural communication. This talk is intended to inspire increased harmony and understanding in the areas of relationships for the overall purpose of celebrating the richness of life. Please join me in warmly welcoming Karen Aoki, Enjoying Diversity.
Okay, so when I prompt you, can just hold on. Okay. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. Tonight, I'm going to be talking with you about a topic that's very close to my heart. It's a very personal topic. And it's about connecting with people from another background, whether it's religion, race, lifestyle, you name it. Before I dive into personal stories, I'd like to start by giving you a framework for my talk. So, the wholeness, kind of the underlying principle here, is enjoying diversity on the basis of unity, by which I mean establish a connection and then enjoy the diversity that we share. I'd like to go to the next slide. Down arrow. The focus of this talk will be the application of that concept in the area of relationships, and specifically talking about creating that bridge, how to represent your own culture, make a connection to somebody from another culture, and then how to meet them on the other side. Okay? Next slide. The framework is taken from the work of Dr. Milton Bennett, who works in the area of cross-cultural communication, which is an emerging field. This is very useful for intercultural business relationships and international schools. He created a scale that measures stages of cultural sensitivity based on cognitive processes at each stage of development. I was one of the participants in my mother's study when she did her master's work. She looked at students of international schools, and she wanted to know what is it that allows certain people to adapt in their host country, and what is it that keeps others within their own original framework without ever taking that risk and crossing over. This is how I became familiar with the work of Dr. Milton Bennett and the framework of intercultural dialogue. Next slide, please. So I'm going to have to go through this pretty quickly because I really need a full hour to expand upon this and work through the materials. So bear with me, we're going to move pretty quickly. We have 6 stages on the scale, starting with denial, stage 1. This is a stage where you do not even recognize that there are cultural differences. Hard for most of us in Fairfield to even realize. We're way beyond this one. Stage 2. Recognizes some differences, but sees them as negative. Next stage. Minimization. You're unaware of projecting your own cultural values on another. This is kind of where you have superiority complex. You think your culture is better than another. Next stage. Acceptance. This is when you begin to understand that the same gestures, an ordinary gesture in your culture will have very different ramifications than another, like hand gesturing or looking somebody in the eye. Very different interpretations depending on where you are. Next stage. Adaptation. This is when you can understand somebody else within their cultural context and then adapt your own behavior to kind of fit and accommodate and work with them based on where they are. And the final stage, integration. This is where you can move between cultures and adapt accordingly. It is so much fun to be in this spot. You can go to India, China, Japan, US, Fairfield. You can talk to somebody from the computer science department who's come from Ethiopia, or you can talk to the guy from Kenya who's in your white choir, and you can start to build really rich, fulfilling relationships. Communication is really fun at this level of integration. Now we're going to turn to stories, so I can illustrate people who have crossed these stages. Next slide. What? That gives all the stages. Next one. Okay. Daryl Davis. There's a story on NPR called Silver Dollar Lounge. This is an interview conducted with Daryl Davis, who is a very qualified keyboardist, jazz keyboardist. I don't know if you've heard of him. He played at the White House. He's also an author, a lecturer, an actor, and a interracial relationship specialist. So we're going to look at the story at which point he came to the point where he needed to make this his passion, his obsession. He wanted to understand more about what it is that keeps people apart. Furthermore, why it is that differences are the basis for hatred. He could not even fathom that. Oh boy, you got to roll along. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is the moment when this happened, this change in his perspective. So he's playing the Silver Dollar Lounge in an all-white band. He sits down after the first set, and this guy comes over to him. He goes, "Wow, that's the first time I ever heard a black man play like Jerry Lee Lewis." And Daryl goes, "What do you mean?" So the two get to talking, and then this white guy says, "You are really interesting. Let me buy you a drink." So they sit down to have a drink, and then the guy says, "This is the first time I've ever shared a drink with a black man." At this point, Daryl Davis goes, "You got to tell me what's going on. How is this even possible?" Now guess what year this is? I'm going to ask you since you're not from the United States. When do you think this happened? 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s?
70s.
This is 1983. This is not so long ago, folks. Okay, so this white guy, his friend jabs him in the rib and says, "You got to tell him." So he goes, "Well, I'm in the KKK. I'm in the Ku Klux Klan. This is the first time I'm talking to a black man." That was a pivotal moment in Daryl's life. At that point, he read everything he could get his hands on interracial prejudice. He became an expert on the subject. And now he went into the stage of cultural sensitivity we call adaptation. That's what it was, adaptation, okay? So he contacted this guy, and he followed up and said, "Look, I need to talk with you, and I need to meet your leader." And then Daryl ended up going to the dragon, the head dragon. These are new terms to me, okay? So the head dragon, I guess, is the big honcho in the KKK organization. Can't remember the name. And he ends up at that place, and he forges a relationship with the leaders of the KKK clan. At this point, he begins to learn about their culture. He goes to their meetings, he attends their meetings, and he becomes an expert on how they communicate and on the topics that they find passionate. And he found all the elements that he connected with. And he found out they were very intelligent, they were very educated, and they cared about education. And he learned more about what their position was on intercultural relationships. And he found out that it was actually that they believed in separation of races. So he became familiar with their value systems, and he connected with what was valuable to them, because he also cared about education. And he said they actually had a very respectful style of communicating. And so within that framework, he began to share his views on interracial relationships. That's the point when he not only mastered, but he integrated. And that led to ultimately the demise of the KKK clan. This is how powerful it can be for one person to take that step and cross the bridge and then lead them over, you know. The KKK clan has never been able to get back that momentum it once had. There have been some attempts to create the organization, but it hasn't worked out. And Daryl actually has a collection of robes of all the leaders who gave their robe over to him when they quit the organization. You have to listen to this story because he recaptures it, and NPR has this beautiful way of creating the sound effects so you really go through the process with him. And he will tell you the pivotal moment at which the two leaders, at which point he and the leader of the clan came to the realization of how stupid it is to, permit these hatreds across cultural differences. It's a really great story, and I hope you check it out. Quickly, next slide. Okay, so this is my mother, and that's me. My mother is the one that helped me through identifying how I can fit into this world. I didn't really have a root culture. I am the product of two cultures, and I grew up in a very diverse culture. I'm what you call a third culture kid. We don't really fit into one place. We can work in many different ones, and this can lead to a sense of emptiness, really. You kind of wonder, who am I really? I mean, I can reflect on any culture, but what's mine and who am I? When my mom did her research, she gave me a vocabulary for discussing these things and to benefit from it and to really discover my own strengths. Next slide. One up. That's my mother. Can you tell in the sea of Indians where my mother is?
Yes.
Okay. So I am proud of my mother. She came from a small town in Minnesota, all-white town, and she's the only one that left her family to go far away, and she went as a missionary. She went originally to share with Japan her Christian values, but what ended up happening is she became so passionate about her host country that she became an expert in their culture, and that's where she really made an impact. She was actually considered the shelter from the storm for many kids who felt like they couldn't identify with American culture or the Protestant Christianity culture. My mother was that person who was those things, but was accessible and could even show complete sensitivity to the other culture. 2 minutes? 1 minute. Okay, so let me wrap this up. So I took from her And gradually I moved up that scale. I went actually from, I think I started out with the level of minimization because I was in the Christian school, but I realized that in order for me to really be at that place of living comfortably with everybody, I'm going to have to expand outside my Christian value system and really explore other systems with authenticity and passion. And that's how I actually ended up in Fairfield. This was the start of me exploring things outside my cultural framework. My primary culture, mind you, was Protestant Christianity. I'm not talking about being Japanese American. That was kind of secondary. My primary culture was being Protestant Christianity with very strict ideas about how God is and how you relate to God. So when I came to Fairfield, this was my shift into exploring other people's point of views. This is where I'm exploring diversity. Now Fairfield is very diverse, but it also has some of its own limitations. There's actually other kinds of cultural paradigms we have to cross here. Not so much in the, well, there's work in the race too, but I mean, spiritual paths is a big thing that comes up. I practice transcendental meditation. You practice a breathing technique. How do we talk about these differences and learn from each other without assuming that they're all the same, for example? So, in closing, here are a couple things to take with you. I'm not one for telling other people what to do. I got that kind of out of my system after Protestant Christianity, but this is just, you know, take what you will. And one thing my mom taught me was let the other person that you're talking to define their cultural framework. So I'm going to say, for example, to my friend, I came to the U.S. when I was in my 20s. I don't have a rich background in American culture. Please tell me how you define yourself. And sometimes that's all you need, and suddenly you are into a half-hour-long conversation of rich insight, and this person starts bringing out all these values they didn't even know they've been wrestling with. So that's one thing, let the other person. Okay, part 2 is next time.
Thank you very much, Karen. Minutes to evaluate Karen's speech, please. Write down some notes, what you liked, what you thought she could improve on. Okay. Our next speaker is Monty Congdon, and here to introduce Monty is Dan Craig.
Yo!
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, viewers at home. Tonight Monty is going to be giving a talk from the Leadership Excellence series. It's actually an advanced module. He's giving it because he's an officer and wants to share this knowledge with the club. He'll be earning credit toward an advanced leadership module. We'll keep track of it when he gets to that point. Monty Congdon is a native of Fairfield, having grown up in this unique Iowa town. He's an Army vet with a combined 8 years in reserves and active service. He returned to Fairfield in 2006 to attend MUM, where he attained a bachelor's degree in business administration. He's currently devoting most of his time and energy into a fledgling new business that he has started with another partner. The Leadership Excellence Series module that he's doing is called Delegate to Empower. Seeking to offer more value and knowledge to our Golden Speaker membership, our President Rhonda Whitaker has organized an initiative for fellow members to present a few leadership training courses from the Toastmasters Leadership Excellence Series. The first course in this initiative, Delegate to Empower, is being presented tonight by Monty. Successful leaders know that they cannot accomplish goals and objectives alone. No matter how talented, well-trained, or experienced, a leader is still a single person, and there's a physical limit to what one can do alone. One must learn how to effectively rely upon others to do some of the necessary work needed to expand a group's or organization's success. Please welcome Monty Congdon.
Thanks for that introduction, Dan. Fellow Toastmasters, our guests here tonight,
and our viewing public at home. Let me begin my presentation with a question. What is delegation? Is there any off the top of your head definition? I know I'm cheating because I have the official one here in my
Having people do things that you're not as good at.
Having people do things that you're not as good at. That's an honest definition right there. You, sir, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I was gonna say, getting others to do something you don't want to do.
It's also an honest answer. It's a form of delegation, but not successful delegation. Thanks for those definitions. Officially, according to the manual, delegation is the process of transferring the responsibility of a task or activity to another person. Now, I'll put in the caveat there that as a leader, it's not just you transferring responsibility to another person. It's also you might delegate tasks from one person to another. As leaders, you have followers. You're in charge of a team. You're also in charge of looking out for your team in that way. So you will also be in charge of delegating from one person to another. Some real-life examples. Here at Toastmasters, we delegate. We have a president. We have a group of officers. Every meeting, the president and our director of education will delegate roles that we perform to other members. So not all the burden is on just a couple people. That's real-life delegation. Personally, at home, I'm usually the cook in my small household. My lovely assistant prefers to wash the dishes, and that's the division of labor that we've sort of established. It's peaceful, keeps things peaceful. But every now and then when I'm cooking a creative meal or a new recipe, or I gotta cook a lot of food, and I can't do all the prep myself, like washing some of the vegetables or preparing some of the vegetables, I'll delegate to her. And that allows me to focus more on the task that I'm good at, which is actually cooking, than having to get stressed out and burn out trying to get everything organized, trying to make a large meal. Real life delegation. So why delegate? We covered that a little bit. Dan went over it a little bit in the introduction. We delegate so that we can be more successful than just an individual, as a team, as a group, as an organization. You can accomplish more, you can achieve larger goals, and you can avoid burnout of yourself and of your team members. That's the official reason. I would like to add in that there's actually a deeper reason to do it. And that is, when you delegate, delegation is a method that also strengthens and it grows trust between a leader and his followers, his or her followers, between team members. Why is this important? Trust is the foundation of all relationships. Leadership itself is a relationship. You have a leader, you have followers. You have a team, you have a coach. You have a squad, you have a sergeant. The foundation of leadership is trust, and successful delegation grows trust. So that's why we delegate, and we'll return to that as we get to the end. Now, before we can successfully delegate, there are some barriers to delegation that we need to consider. The first one being lack of confidence. This is when a leader doesn't believe in the ability of the other members of their team to accomplish a given task or goal. Number two is control. A leader may not want to give up control or command of a situation. You see this a lot in top-down organizations. Rigid hierarchies, military of course, but some corporations, some businesses are also very rigidly organized. So control can be an issue there. Number three is selfishness. Some people just don't want to share the credit. Next is insecurity. A leader might be fearful that a team member might perform better than them, might show them up, might get their job. Number five is reluctance.
reluctant to take others, reluctance. A leader might be reluctant to ask others to take additional responsibility. This person usually ends up doing all the work themselves. I call this playing a martyr. Teams don't succeed by having martyrs. Now what I find interesting about all of these is that they don't have to do with the people, with other people, people on your team, people in your organization. They have to do with you. They have to do with the leader. These are issues that you need to overcome on a self level before you can be an effective leader, before you can be an effective delegator. And I like this because I think one of the main duties of a leader is that, number one, you need to seek to improve yourself. Because how can you help others improve unless you've already reached a level to where you can help them? You must first take care of yourself, then seek to help others. So once you've dealt with these barriers, we can move on to what are the 5 steps of delegation? There's 5 steps. First step is prioritize. As a leader, you need to decide what tasks and jobs need to be done by you and what tasks can be delegated to others on your team. Number 2, you need to match the needs to the ability of the other person. Don't assign someone a task which you know that they're just not prepared for. That's called setting someone up for failure. You don't want to do that. Know your team members. Number 3 is you need to assign responsibility. This is about establishing clarity. Be clear about what the task is. You define the task and be clear about whose job it is to get it done. Number 4 is you grant authority. Once again, this is don't set someone up for failure. If you give someone a task, give them the means to accomplish it. If you work in a company and Greg over there, you assign Greg a task, a project that he needs to get done for the next marketing meeting, but he needs funds to do this, make sure those funds are available to him. Maybe you have to write a letter to your boss to get funds released for a special project. But that's your responsibility. Make sure that your people have the means to be successful. And last but not least is you need to establish accountability. This really leads right into follow-up. As a leader, you can delegate authority, but ultimately the responsibility rests with you. You are the leader of this team or this organization. You can assign and delegate tasks, but ultimately the success or fail still is upon you. You're the one that made the decision. You're the one that picked your teammate. Do something. So ultimately it rests on you. So follow up, see how the task is progressing, see if their needs are being met, if there's anything more that you can do to help them be successful. You want them to be successful. If they're successful, you're successful, the team's successful, the group is successful. That's how you accomplish goals. And last but not least, recognize people when they're successful. When they perform a task and they do it well, the goal is met, the project comes in on time, recognize. Don't be an egoist and steal the glory. Recognize your team members. So when you've done all those things, you can reap the benefits of delegation. Number 1, empowerment. And all these play off each other. When a group or an organization reaches their goals, people feel good about that. And when people know that they played an integral part in reaching that goal, not just one person, not just one leader, but the whole team can take credit for something and feel like that they've accomplished something together, that's empowerment. What does empowerment lead to? Empowerment leads to ownership. Ownership as in organizational pride. Ownership as in organizational awareness. I like to compare this to the concept of renters versus owners. If you rent a house, you know the property isn't really yours. You're not an owner. So you don't take care of it quite as well. You're not as invested in it. When you're an owner, when you have ownership, the small things matter. The little things matter, not just the big things. And that establishes, once you take care of the small things, it makes the big things that much easier. Organizational ownership. And last but not least, empowerment ownership. All that is based upon a foundation of trust, which is what is built through successful delegation. Because leadership is a relationship, and relationships are based upon trust. In conclusion, I would like to leave you with a quote. Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. This was said by a gentleman that goes by General George S. Patton. Mr. Toastmaster.
Please take 2 minutes to evaluate Monty Congdon. Mr. Timer, did everyone qualify?
Unfortunately, I had to disqualify Karen. It was hard to do, but she did speak over the limit, so she's been disqualified. But Monty did qualify.
Okay. So I don't guess we need to vote for best speaker, but you can vote anyway if you want. Okay, so I'd like now to turn the meeting over to Jean Symington Craig, who is our general evaluator this evening.
Yo! Excellent speeches tonight, really enjoyable. Our first evaluator evaluating Karen Aoki will be Will Burns.
Yo! Thank you, Gene. Toastmasters, honored distinguished guests, viewers at home, and Karen. Her mission was to inspire the audience. My question to you, how many of you were inspired? Show of hands. That's pretty inspiring.
Totally.
Just imagine if you'd done the other 2/3 of that speech. Okay, you're a fairly polished speaker, so I'm actually going to move a little bit away from the manual, only because there's elements that I kind of saw here I want to call out, but I will give you the manual as well. I liked how you came out here. I can't actually tell, based upon the fact that you clearly had to kind of rush things at the end. It makes me think that maybe you didn't break this into quite as much segmentation as maybe otherwise, but yet you were so polished up here that I couldn't even tell. I mean, you were just rolling along here with your speech very comfortably, very calmly. And I want to acknowledge you, call out is the right word, for the way that you used the projector, in that you would look at it to draw our attention as the audience to it, and then come back to face us to speak about the topic without actually reading the slides. That's a very good thing to do. It's something that I think that really helps to build that with us, because it's a small thing, but I think it's essential to PowerPoint use. One thing, I feel the speech could have benefited from breaking it into segments. I know for myself, I would have appreciated kind of getting one segment 1 week, and then maybe the next timer. I mean, that's the way my mind works. How many people would like that? How many people would find that be? All right, question 1. How many people would actually like that, like in segments? How many would find that distracting or kind of hard to? Okay.
Do you mean break up one speech into 3 different podcasts?
Yeah, or elements, because I think you had strong elements here throughout your speech. You talked about the 7 stages. Talked about your mom's experience, a little bit about how kind of preps you, but then you actually have your own experience, which you didn't really get to, which I would have loved to have heard. Other thing here I would just mention, with what you did give, I wasn't sure if this was talking a lot about Milton Bennett or about Gerald Davis. There was kind of a sort of a message shift there that I wasn't kind of sure about. Both good messages. Maybe some clarity there. But as I say, I mean, you did a really good job of making a point. For example, you talk about your mother being this figure of of shelter, being this, this accepting person, and then you basically make the statement and show us with a picture and with examples and personal story. And that's all I got for you.
Thank you, Will. Our second evaluator, evaluating Monty Condon, is Dan Craig. Welcome, Dan.
Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. We saw a very nice presentation tonight from the Leadership Excellence Series. I think you all agree that that was very well done. Good job, Monty.
Yes.
I think anytime we need a Leadership Excellence module done, Monty should do it.
Hear, hear.
He has inspired me. He did so many things well. Monty has not done a lot of projects for us yet, so it's impressive that he can jump forward and do an advanced leadership module. He did so many things well in this talk. I liked just that he began with a question, what is delegation? Made us think a bit. He gave us a definition. After we spoke, he gave us a definition and an example. Another thing that I noticed that he did very well was what I call triplets. Maybe they're called triads, I don't know. But anyway, he'll reel off a set of 3 points. And I really like the rhythm of that. Did you notice at one point he said, you have a leader, then you have followers. You have a team, then you have a coach. You have a squad, then you have a sergeant. And another time he said, if they're successful, you're successful. The team's successful. Then I think he threw in the group successful. So I guess that was a four-fer. The other thing I noticed that he did so well, and this really stood out for something that was based around a prepared module, was that after he'd give us the info that was in the slides, that was in the presentation, he would restate it in his own words. And an example of that would be when he talked about barriers to leadership. He said, teams don't succeed by having martyrs. And I wrote down another place, I don't think I'll have time to go through that too, but in a couple of ways he did that sort of thing. He would restate the information. And that showed that he had integrated the information well. That made us feel like we understood it better. So it just made for a better communication. A couple of techniques I noticed that I thought I would mention. I thought his movement could have been a little more purposeful. There is a tendency, I think, to kind of get anchored to your slides. So just the point that if you can move a bit more about the stage in a purposeful way, then that will be good for your audience to follow. You did have good gestures, just good natural gestures as you made your points. Vocal variety I thought I'd mention, and it's actually in the evaluation guide too. I thought that could use some improvement. Your speaking voice is not at all a monotone. It's not the kind of thing that puts people to sleep. You do have a good rise and fall, but it's the same rise and fall all the way through. So I'd like to see you at some point have a pause, speak a little quieter, and then back louder again, just for that variety. And then finally, I thought that the concluding quote was quite strong. So all in all, really well done. Thanks very much.
It's a great night for our last night here, isn't it?
Yes!
Multicultural, it's great. Let's hear from our reports at this time. Oh, first, we're going to select our best evaluator. Mr.
Mr. Timer, did our evaluators, including our table topics evaluator, qualify?
Yes, Art, Will, and Dan all qualified.
Okay, if you could take a moment and just jot down. All right, let's go for our reports now. And we'll start with our timer. And if we could have our ballot counter move aside. Take the ballots and run. And could we have your report, please?
Yes. As a timer, I kept time in the meeting. All the light bulbs are still intact, although the rumor is I hear we might be replacing this machine anymore. Okay. So yeah, table topic speakers. Lewis spoke for 1 minute 24 seconds. Nelson spoke for 1 minute 27 seconds. Seth clocked in at 1 minute 55 seconds, and Gilberto spoke for 1 minute 44 seconds. Our prepared speeches, Karen spoke for 13 minutes and 22 seconds, Monty for 11 minutes and 5 seconds, and for our evaluators, Art and Dan both narrowly qualified at 3 minutes 27 seconds, and Will at 3 minutes 5 seconds. That's my report. Thank you for keeping on time so far, Madam General Evaluator.
Great, thank you. Next, our eye counter.
The fill words tonight. I counted for Stephen, 1 so. Cindy and Stephanie, I couldn't find anything. Louis had 1 1 2 ands, 1 Xerox. Nelson had 1 so, 1 and 1 Xerox. Seth had 2 ahs, 1 like, 1 so, 2 ands, and 1 Xerox. Gilberto had 10 ahs, 3 so's, 8 ands, and 2 Xeroxes. Art had 1 Xerox and 2 false starts. Will had 4 ums, 1 you know, and 2 false starts. Karen had 1 1 like, 2 you knows, 2 so's, 2 ands, 2 Xeroxes, and 5 false starts. Dan had 1 and 2 Xeroxes. Monty had 1 so, 1 and 5 false starts. Gene had 1 and Jeff had 1 ah. That's my report. Thank you so much.
Quick question. In German, what are the filler words that happen if you're speaking German? Are they the same?
To a degree.
So you have
Und so
ahs.
weiter.
Und so weiter. Definitely the ahs. Und so. Yeah. Thanks.
Since we're talking about multicultural and global perspectives, then different filler words can be used in different cultures. I just thought we could mention that. Well, thank you very much, Surya. Then we have our grammarian. I'm trying to think of a Genesis thing. Quick. I can't.
Unless I missed, Nelson and Seth were the only 2 people tonight that used the word Genesis, and both used them properly, as far as I could tell. What caught my ear that I really enjoyed, how people said things, was Louis squeezed it like orange juice in the morning. That's such a visual picture of someone doing that. Nelson knocked down those walls. Seth, lifelong mastery. Gilberto, high school time went by in my mind. Art, toolbox metaphor. Karen had 3 that I enjoyed. Take that step and cross that bridge. Look at the other systems with passion. And there was another word in there, but I didn't remember.
I don't even remember that.
Tell me how do you define yourself? When you were talking about having a conversation with someone else. Dan, a tendency to get anchored to your slides, and that just, if you are a sailor or you have a boat and have an anchor, that kind of like really put in a real visual metaphor, a tendency to get anchored to your slides. And I would like to remind you, Dan, that you sometimes use the word ta instead of tu. Or something close to tu, but it doesn't really come out as tu. But
That's the way we say it in the Texas Panhandle.
There you go. I stand corrected. Monty, delegation strengthens and grows trust. I'll have to remember that one. Some just don't want to share the credit. That's very true. And all these play off each other. And those are my reports for the evening.
And now we have a joke from
Yes, we do.
our joke master.
Absolutely.
Blown in on the winds.
Yes.
No!
Guy walks down the street. Every day he passes a pet shop. There's a cage with a parrot in it. And the pet owner says, "You look like a guy who needs a parrot." The guy says, "No, no, no, not me." And every day he walks by, there's the cage, the parrot. "You look like a guy who just listen to the parrot." "Oh, Polly wants a cracker." "No, I don't want a parrot." And every day he walks by, just listen to the parrot. He walks in, the parrot says, "Oh, hello, good day. Hello, sir, good day." He's like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." He says, "No, I don't need a parrot." He walks by. The next day he says, "I'll give you a month's supply of bird food. This parrot's really smart. You want to have this parrot?" And the guy says, "All right, I'll take the parrot." The pet owner goes, can't believe I finally got rid of that parrot." So the guy takes it home, puts it there. And day and night, the parrot, "Ah, Polly wants a cracker. Hey, how you doing? Oh, what's happening? Oh, I've stubbed my toe. Oh, this, oh, that, oh, ring, ring. Oh, he's not here right now." Just constantly chattering. He says, "Parrot, you need to hush it. I'm trying to sleep. I'm trying to concentrate." The next day, "Oh, Polly want a cracker. Oh, hello. Oh, get out of my house. I'm done with you. Oh, I can't believe you just parrot's just talking every day, night." And he finally puts the parrot in the freezer. Cool him off a little bit. Opens the freezer door. The parrot comes out to the edge and says, "Sir, I humbly apologize for my constant raving and ranting." The guy says, "Oh, wow, great. This is fantastic." He says, "Just one thing. Please do not do to me what you have done to the chicken."
Very funny. Well, thank you for that joke. Very appropriate on a cold winter day too, to be talking about freezers and such and so forth. Now comes to the time for me as the general evaluator to give some comments. I'll start with our table topics evaluator, Art. Run right through. He gave suggestions to people. He recommended to two different people, Luis and Gilberto, staging. Again, evaluation is always personal opinion. So whatever I say, if it resonates, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But from my opinion, I feel staging is a more advanced type of thing, a more advanced kind of skill. For someone who's a beginner, I would focus more on something that's directly attached to their body or coming out of their mouth. Something about vocal or something about hands or something, and then later move into staging. I'd also, just because table topics is an impromptu speech, you don't know what you're going to say, I like to have a table topics evaluator comment on the organization, because it has to happen just like that. And was there an opening, a body, and a conclusion that referred back to the opening? To me, that's the gold standard. If you're able to hold it together and when your conclusion says something and wraps it back around to your opening, that is gold standard. But sometimes that doesn't happen, but that would be my suggestion for Art. Will, evaluating Karen. It was great. Got accolades. Everyone was expressing how inspired we were, myself included. And he gave some suggestions about segments, maybe doing some different aspects of that speech over several periods, several projects. I would have liked to see an example outline. having seen the content, give her an idea of where are some ideas where there could be some good breaks, or how you would recommend that. Because she was a little confused, so you could give suggestions, and that would also illustrate what the comment was. I'm going to say for both of the evaluators, because this has been coming up at the Cambridge Club quite a bit, is that identifying the specific purpose. So at the beginning, for Karen, why are we listening to this? What am I expected to get out of this talk? So it was inspirational, that's the general purpose, but then what specifically am I as an audience member going to get? Am I going to be inspired to go read a book? Or am I going to be inspired to go join something that's multicultural? What is that? So that would be something to comment on, because that's lesson number 3. Get to the point. So that's Will. And then for Dan, again, just really made Monty feel good. Did you feel good, Monty? It's like, I know, Dan has that effect, doesn't he? And he also pulled out one of my favorite things, the vocal, how do you say it, triads, some of those things, those are word choices that either come naturally or you have to work for it. He also said, he talked about restating. That was a kind of a subtle point. The fact that Monty said it again in his own words gave us confidence that Monty was someone we could listen to, because Monty really had it down because he was able to say it in his own words. He wasn't just parroting the the slides. Would like to see a couple of examples. He did give some examples, actually, of what that was sounding like and what that was doing. And a suggestion of vocal variety. Have you done number 4 yet, or number 6 or anything? Okay, so something to look forward to. Dan doesn't necessarily know that. Was there were there objectives for this speech?
Yes.
Okay, because it's something I've never
Actually,
seen.
there was an evaluation guide. It didn't have the objectives the way it does in a CC manual.
Okay, so when you're doing one of these, evaluating one of these kinds of projects that aren't specifically, it's all laid out, if you give the audience an idea of what the objectives are so that we have a better understanding of what Monty's trying to accomplish, that would be helpful for me. It sounded like it was a general evaluation, but maybe there were some specifics that we wanted to look for there. And again, identifying a specific purpose. Great information about delegation, but why am I listening to this? What am I supposed to be doing? Is this inspiring? Is this going to get me doing it more, delegating more, or what? What am I supposed to do? So that would be something, I don't know if the materials even have that, but I'm kind of big on what's the value for the audience at this point. All right, so those are all of my topics. And I don't think I was being timed. Is that correct? I know, I love it.
You were supposed to be, yeah.
Well,
I noticed, and I just let it go because I'm doing his competent leader evaluation on timing. By the way, is everyone doing their competent leader, getting credit for all of this?
Red light change.
Well, now he goes from nothing to red. That's not right. All right. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to our Toastmaster, Mr. Stephen Harper.
Ladies and gentlemen, now is the moment when we will give our awards. May I have the slip of paper, please? Best table topics goes to Nelson. Woo! Thank you very, very much. You get to keep that for a week if you like, or if it's a hassle to come back next week with it, then just leave it here.
Yo!
And now, best evaluator. Dan Craig?
Yo!
And is is this to be given to?
Yes.
Oh,
CC number 10.
Karen?
Oh, okay.
Competent communication project to inspire your audience, which you certainly did. And best speaker goes to Monty Cogden. Yo! Now I would like to turn the meeting over to our president, Rhonda Whitaker.
Yo!
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'd like to thank everyone for helping us get back on our time schedule. We got a little bit behind when we went over on table topics. I have several people I'd like to recognize tonight. Actually, the first person is Art. I'd like to have Art come up and say a piece about the thank you letter he wrote to the church.
So this club has enjoyed 13 years worth of hosting by First United Methodist Church, Fairfield. And I would like the camera to pan around while we publicly thank the church. We have just 45 minutes ago delivered to their office a letter thanking them in writing, the same way for the service that they provided to us. The provision of an excellent place to meet has been a contributing factor to the success of this club, and we want to publicly acknowledge our debt to them for that and wish them all well.
The next person I'd like to thank is our VP Public Relations for the first draft of our article that we're going to have approved by Hy-Vee to go in the Fairfield Ledger. And that would be Jeff Shipley. Let's give him a hand. And we have a team of people who actually looked that draft over, and everybody added a piece which we put all together into a wonderful article. We'll see how it goes through the edit process at the Ledger and the approval with Hy-Vee. But we gave it a really great write-up. Now, we have several people who contributed. I'd like to have them stand up. You know who you are. You know who sent answers in. Please stand up for the article. All right? Dan, Jean, Tom. We also have the person who is doing our box ad for the poster page in the Fairfield Weekly Reader, Mr. Surya Zeeb, who is ready to show us the finished article on our PowerPoint screen, which is so conveniently set up tonight.
Light off.
Sure.
Second one from the right end.
Projector on?
Do you have
Sometimes it takes a while to load up.
Yep.
It just takes a while.
It's getting
All
there.
right, here it is.
That is awesome, sorry.
Oh, this looks beautiful.
It's tilted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you read it to us, Surya?
Toastmasters has moved to Hy-Vee Club Room, West Wall. Join us there every Tuesday at 7:40 p.m. And then the mission at Toastmasters International is to empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders.
Woo. Food and pharmacy. While we have that to look at, do you think that West Wall should be dropped from?
No, keep it.
You can't find it if you don't know where it is.
Keep it? Okay, it's obvious. All right, very good. Just checking. We like to make team decisions here.
question?
Now, Jean,
Just not wanting to totally reinvent anything, but is it important to have golden speakers in there as opposed to just Toastmasters? Which of course affects spacing and alignment and all of that.
Well, it has to be turned in tomorrow morning.
Do both.
And I don't want to keep Surya up tonight trying to figure out where to stick golden speakers in there. No.
It's okay, I mean.
We're the only Toastmaster club in Fairfield.
Right now.
Right now.
Well, no, Cambridge is.
They're private, they're not a public club, so they're a private club, they don't.
We have
Looks
been
good.
Toastmasters.
Looks good to me.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we keep it as is.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Robert's rules, we're getting the hang of it. Now, I'd like to recognize Monty because this is the first leadership speech I have seen in our club since I joined. So, let's give Monty another hand. Will is also going to be presenting a leadership speech, and I think it's very wonderful that both these young men who have actually served in the United States military have stepped forward to do speeches on leadership. I'm certain they were trained well. Tonight is our last night. We have to clear everything out. So please stay and help us take things down and carry things down to the first floor where we came in so they can be loaded onto vehicles and moved to someone's home for safekeeping. Tomorrow will be our first night at Hy-Vee, and I would like to identify a specific purpose of going to Hy-Vee, which is that Toastmasters International's mission is to empower individuals for more effective communication and leadership, and that they, in our contest coming up, it says, no one will be denied because of race, religion, country, different views, etc. So we are going to become a very altruistic group. We will be all loving and all knowing. We are going to be putting forth our best to the people that come in that door to visit as guests from the community of Fairfield. Right now we have a majority of people here related to campus. And I would like to see us welcome all the people that come, because we all end up at the same watering hole. We all need to eat, we all need to drink. And I'm sure we have something, we have loaves and fishes, we have speeches and evaluators who can be shared throughout the world. With that, I make my good night to our guests. I'd like to ask our guests if they have anything they would like to say that is a positive note about the meeting tonight. You can volunteer anything. You don't have to volunteer if you don't want to. Luis first, please.
I really enjoy looking at the prepared speeches because it helps a lot to see what things they do and just it's an enriching experience so that I can incorporate these different aspects in where I speak next.
Thank you, Luis. John, you had a comment?
Yeah, both speeches were just very well prepared, I thought. It was inspiring to see the presentations and just be more determined to improve my own speaking ability because of what I saw in both speakers. And I also want to look up Silver Dollar Lounge.
Yeah.
NPR.
And it's a video.
It's interview.
Interview?
Audio, yeah.
Very interesting.
If you look up his name, he's also on YouTube. I've seen some of his, he's older now, he still talks about it.
Thank you, John. You can also see the speeches on FPAC video. We have YouTube. And that site is listed at the top of our agenda. It says Like Golden Speakers on Facebook, and there's a link to our FPAC site where you can see these presentations these evenings. Thank you, Tom. And Tom, our cameraman, may need some help packing some things up and taking things downstairs. His back's a little sore tonight. And with that note, is there anything else before we adjourn? Okay. Tomorrow, next week, Hy-Vee, 7:40. Please come early if you can. We don't have to do so much setup, but it would be nice to get used to the space a little bit. Adjourned.